I just wanted to say for the record that you mentioned that this is your intent for this meeting. I actually requested this special meeting to be today, and whether that matters or it's a matter of semantics, my intentions were entirely different and are now seemingly polar opposite to what has just occurred. And that was also my understanding of the events that were going to transpire at this special meeting. I understood we were going to give brief background so that everyone was informed, and I'm not sure that's what I got. I'm not sure that's what everyone else got. They got a background, but it was tainted with smug, cavalier, and disingenuous terminology that if anyone believes that we're trying to work together with the school committee, that belief just went out the window. Because I know you say you speak for yourself, but you sit behind a podium that says you're the president of this body. And I don't think that's something that we should take too lightly.
Well, you know, Mr. Pelletier, you can ask me any specific questions you want. But let me make it as clear as I can, okay? I agreed to a joint meeting in an executive session.
And then you canceled it.
No, wait a minute. No, I didn't cancel it. I didn't cancel it, and that's why I give credit to Mrs. Black. She didn't accept your suggestion and the suggestion of a few others that she lied and say I canceled it. I didn't cancel it. I made it, no, wait a minute, let me finish. I made it clear when I called Mrs. Black that we were simply postponing. And thank you, Mrs. Black, for using that language of postponing. I didn't cancel that meeting. I never would have canceled that meeting. It was postponed. And when Mrs. Black got back to me, she indicated that everybody was in agreement to postpone the meeting. So don't say I canceled.
I apologize. I retract that you canceled. You postponed. I found out about it about 45 minutes before the meeting was happening, without anyone discussing it with a, you know, I'm just saying that there is a way that we can do this without yelling at each other. And a statement that, like you just made, just doesn't fit in that vein of thinking. And I'm just trying very hard to prevent people who want to fight with each other, because I won't have it. I live here. This is my home. I've lived here for 27 years, almost 28 now.
Well, you're entitled to that view, Mr. Pelletier. Myself, when I make an agreement, I expect people to stand by it. And then when somebody tells me that we had a joint meeting scheduled, and then when I listen to a video of a meeting that took place with the school committee 2 days ago, and they are simply inviting me as a guest to a school committee meeting, I don't think that I've been treated well. At least I could have gotten a phone call. You know what I would have expected? I would have expected somebody to call me, or call Mr. Gonslow, or call Mr. Tights and say, and I think this would have been an honest way to handle it. You know, we've given it some thought, and I think we made a mistake. For whatever reason, whatever tactical considerations are involved, we really don't want this as a joint meeting. We would prefer to have a school meeting. We would ask you to excuse us from that obligation that we had. We would like to proceed with our own school meeting. And maybe as part of that, maybe we could work out some sort of accommodation that would permit a joint meeting. But at least be honest about it. Don't go through a whole meeting trying to pretend that there was never an agreement. There was in fact an agreement. There was in fact an agreement, I suspect, until Monday. And I suspect something changed on Monday, just before the hearing. Because if you read that interview and the statements in the Newport Daily News, apparently as of Monday, the reporter was under the impression that a meeting was going forward on January the 13th. You know, I can work with the school committee. That's not a problem. But I feel, you know, I don't know. I think that we should, as a body, you were insulted. You had an agreement with these people, and you were going to go there as equals and discuss some real issues. Now you're told you're going to be there as guests, and you may be allowed to speak. I think that's a very, very different perspective and a very, very different setting. I'm sorry, and I apologize for raising my voice.
Mr. President, obviously this is a very touchy issue, but some of the issues that precipitated this, I think, what troubled me the most. Number one is the delay of the audit. This situation is not going to be decided in a week, a month. It's going to be long-standing. And this audit has been coming for a long time, and it is the council's responsibility regarding the audit. And I am very, very upset that the audit was not completed as scheduled. Now, I understand, yes, let's hold off, but this situation, everyone knows, was not going to be settled in a week or a month. So to hold off the audit troubles me. That's number one. Number two, in regards to the $367,165, to wait until the audit to find out that that amount has been requested from the school department troubles me even more, because our year ended on June 30th. We should have at least had an indication that that amount of dollars had been requested by the school department. So those are two issues there. So I'm troubled that we are looking at a situation that we don't know our financial situation. And to be sitting here the day from the new year and still not have the audit, which could have been completed with a footnote later on if this was ever settled or when it's settled. And so that's my main issue. And the communication has been a problem. I think nobody is communicating with each other. This is a critical issue for the town of Tiverton. And we have got to work together, not fight against each other. This affects every citizen in the town, because whether or not it's going to impact on the taxes or on our surplus or whatever financial portions that affect every person in this town. And starting now, this council, and I'm going to ask the school committee, have to work together. This is a town issue. And this is something that we have got to settle and resolve quickly.
I'd like to speak to the issue that Ed just brought up about the request for the extension of the audit, and just maybe as a freshman having some questions that have yet to be answered. I have a couple questions. I'm concerned, and I wrote an email, and I'll distribute it to whoever wants it. You can put this in the record. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You guys can have them, whoever else wants them. There's 15 copies. I wrote an email dated December 23rd, expressing to the president of the council, expressing my concern about the language that was being put out in various correspondence. It referred mostly to the correspondence prior to the treasurer's request for an extension of the audit, also dated December 23rd. The issues still apply to that. There's this bit of language that keeps cropping up, and Mr. President used it earlier in his introductory comments and statement, that the town council approved and supported the treasurer's request to the adjustment and return the overpayment. And I'm not quite sure that's what happened. And I keep reading about it in the newspaper as the town's actions, and that's sort of what it's grown legs to, and it's referred that way. And I've seen it quoted a couple times in various correspondence. And I looked in the minutes, I looked in my notes everywhere I could, because that term of approved and supported meant something that I didn't think we were on the same page with. And I looked at the minutes from that open session on the 13th, and I'm going to quote this as part of the motion. Quote, "But as long as we have the support of legal counsel and we support his interpretations of the applicable statutes and regulations, we are supporting Mr. DiMatteo's request for the adjustment." There is no reference to approved, and the first question that came into my head was, do we have the authority to approve an action that an independent body takes? Can anyone answer that question? Or it's a matter of semantics, but it's an important matter. It's an important distinction to make, I believe.
I can answer it in part, Mr. Pelletier. You're reading from the minutes. You may recall at that meeting, I read the front part of Mr. DiMatteo's proposed letter. The portion that says approve, and what was the other language?
Approve and support.
Approve and support was the language I read from the first paragraph of Mr. DiMatteo's letter in the open session.
It's not in the minutes.
That's why I'm pointing out you're reading the minutes, but I have no doubt at all that I read it verbatim right out of the first paragraph.
Are the minutes for this meeting shorthand or?
I thought we didn't have it. I'm sorry.
Let me comment while Juanita's looking at that.
That's word for word?
But the minutes are not necessarily word for word. They may be word for word, but the minutes are a synopsis of the discussion. Except for when we have certain public hearings when we have stenographer here, we don't necessarily, most of the minutes are not word for word. They may include bits that are word for word, but not necessarily everything, because otherwise we'd get, 50, 100 page.
It was a short
minutes.
meeting, though. It was a short meeting.
I believe this is just the open session part, because we haven't done the, and I believe I did take these from the DVD, I mean, that's what I took from there.
Well, even if we didn't, I'm
word.
wondering if we do in fact have the authority to approve what an independent agent does. And that concerns me slightly. If we say we can, then it implies that we somehow have a say in what an independent member of this town government does or can do. Maybe it's falling on deaf ears, but I think it's an important.
Mr. Pelletier, actually, my recollection was support also.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's an easy answer, since I read right off the letter. As soon as Mr. DiMatteo, do you have a copy of the letter that you sent out on? Okay, but I have a copy of that letter.
Was it the draft that we saw in executive session, or was it
The one that was
one that went out?
want you to sign?
No, it was only the last paragraph. There was some questions about the last paragraph, so all I read was the first paragraph. And if you have it, Mr. DiMatteo, we can read it into the record tonight.
No, I'll hand it to you.
Okay.
And my question is this the letter that was sent out, or was this the letter that we were presented with? If you read from a letter that's different from what he sent out and what we have as a matter of record, then there's no point in reading the letter. But respectfully, that is not the letter that we were presented.
No, it's the first version of this one. Mr. DiMatteo, I don't know if you have the original copy of this letter.
Yes, it's right in there.
What was the language we're concerned about?
The language I'm concerned about is this, in most recently, in the December 23rd request from the treasurer to the auditor general, the acting auditor general, during the town council meeting on the evening of December 13th, 2010, in open session, the town council approved and supported the adjustment to return the overpayment of $365,165 back to the town of Tiverton from the school department for fiscal year 2010